my Handmaid's Tale seasons 1 through 5 recap. Today we're talking about season 3. Spoilers ahead, so if you don't want to be spoiled, please feel free to come back later. So we start out where we left off. June has just given Emily her baby to go across the Canadian border. June is staying behind because she cannot leave Hannah. So we see the truck drive off. Lawrence's car is already taken off. June is running towards the car. It turns around. She tells Lawrence, hey, I'm not leaving. I have to go get Hannah. And he's kind of like, okay. She tries to get Hannah. She's so close to getting her, but she's captured. She does have a little moment with Hannah's Gilead mom, and it's kind of tense and awkward. But June gets taken back to the Waterford house where there's a very angry Fred and Serena. Serena is just dealing with a lot of emotions, and June is only talking to her, kind of ignoring Fred. And they end up having this moment where June is holding Serena and they're both crying together because Serena knows what she did was the right decision, but she's just dealing with, obviously the pain of losing the baby that she'd wanted for so long. June goes up to her room and she has a brief conversation with Nick, who kind of calls her selfish. He reminds her that a bunch of people risked their lives to try to get June out, and her not going was kind of selfish on her part, and she just kind of ignores him, goes up to her room. Later, we see just how bad things are for Serena and Fred. Obviously, their marriage is in crumbles, and Serena's mental health is declining, and she basically lights their marriage bed on fire. And so June walks into the room and sees her just standing there watching her whole bedroom burn. She gets Serena, takes her hand, takes her out of the house, and then later on, we see June get transferred to the Red Center. She's kind of punished, and then she's reassigned to the Lawrence household. So the Lawrence household is quite different than the Waterford household. Commander Lawrence and his wife Eleanor have no interest in the ceremony or anything really having to do with handmaids and Gilead. That's kind of a nice situation for a handmaid, but Commander Lawrence, he seems to be a kind of complicated person, and June learns more about that. His wife Eleanor obviously is just racked with guilt. She hates what's going on. She has some mental health issues going on, and so she's not a stable person, and she's just dealing with a lot of emotions. She finds out that the Marthas and the Lawrence household have been kind of going undercover and doing some different operations, and she's trying to prove herself to them that she can be a valuable asset. Kind of agree to let her help with one Martha who is supposed to escape. She tries to help with this mission. They come back, and then that Martha ends up not getting out. She ends up coming back, and another Martha has been injured. Before the mission, Lawrence kind of finds them all talking amongst themselves and basically tells June, this is your funeral. If something weird is going on in this house, that's on you. And so June is a little nervous about oh no, okay. And so when the handmaids show up later on, one is injured, the other Martha hasn't escaped. Obviously June has to hide the hurt Martha. They're trying to figure out how to conceal her, but then a bunch of people show up at the talk to Commander Lawrence, and so it's very tense. We do see Eleanor kind of help distract and tell June, go take care of business, but unfortunately that Martha that was injured dies, and then June has to bury her in the backyard. You do see Aunt Lydia visit June at the Lawrence household, and Aunt Lydia is going through some stuff. Obviously she was attacked by Emily, and she's really angry, and I think really just unstable, and she's trying to go up the stairs to inspect her bedroom. Although she's walking with a cane, she can barely walk, and June tries to help her, but instead of being grateful, Lydia just beats her, and Commander Lawrence, comes upon them, and Lydia's just okay, see you later. And so we can tell the state of Aunt Lydia's mental health is declining. We do see Emily and the baby have made it successfully to Canada. Emily and the baby have gone through so much to get there. They have to wade through this water. It's we almost lose them, but they make it. She's a refugee now, and we watch kind of the process of her being taken in, getting health care. There's all these new things that she's dealing with. She has not called her wife yet because she's just not ready. And so we see Luke and Moira. Emily has given Nicole, the baby to Luke and Moira, and Luke is having a hard time. He doesn't really seem like he wants to be that involved with the baby, and Moira is trying to help him, but he just seems to be a little distant. They have Emily over for dinner. You kind of see that Luke is kind of viewing Emily as June. He's worried that if June came back, she wouldn't immediately contact him. And so Moira is telling Emily this, and trauma is different for everyone. Everyone's on their own timelines. Luke just kind of has to learn, not everyone's the same. And I think June probably would have immediately called him when she got back, but there's all that kind of insecurity there. but we do see that he connects with the baby later on. A bunch of commanders visit the Lawrence household, and we see that Commander Lawrence is kind of punishing June. So the Martha that died in his house. We do see that Nick has become a commander, and in this like kind of tense scene, Commander Lawrence kind of embarrasses June, kind of tries to humiliate her. He's talking about her previous job, how she used to be a book editor, and he's talking about like a book about gender studies, and he was like, go find it for me on the bookshelf in front of all these commanders. And of course, June can't read, she's not allowed to read, and so, you know, it's like a tense thing of trying to get the book and not get caught like reading the title. I don't know, it's a whole thing. Confronts him later, and he's like, you know, I don't want to help the Martha, I don't know her. And she's like, well, you helped me and you didn't know me. And he's like, oh, yes, I did. So we kind of learn more about his involvement in Gilead. Like, he really helped kind of build up the system in Gilead, and he's feeling very guilty about it. And so we can tell he's not like a bad guy, but he clearly has some stuff going on. But his main goal is really just to take care of his wife, who is so scared in this environment. He's really trying to take care of Eleanor. While this is going on, we kind of see Serena. She's separated from Fred. She's living with her mother, and we kind of see like the dynamic between her and her mother. Serena is extremely like depressed. She misses the baby. There's a nice moment between her and Rita. Rita has approached her and made her like a little glove thing for her missing finger. And so she kind of tells Serena, like, you know, everything's gonna be okay, you're gonna get through this. We're just kind of seeing the mental space that Serena is in is not great. Further kind of punish June, Commander Lawrence takes June to like this big holding area where there are like hundreds of women in these cages, and he says pick out 5 women to be Marthas and the rest are going to the colonies. And so at first June is like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be involved in this, but she eventually does pick out 5 women, give him the paperwork, and it's a whole thing. Later on, we see that Angela, you know, Janine's baby, is getting baptized. There's like a ceremony, so all the handmaids get together and they go to this ceremony. Janine is invited. She's very excited to be there. We see a nice moment between Janine and Aunt Lydia. Aunt Lydia is very like, you know, kind of cold and like angry. And Janine approaches her and goes, you know, I prayed for you. I'm so glad you're doing better. And Aunt Lydia's like, she's like, I know what you think of me. And Janine's like, no, I truly did pray for you. And Aunt Lydia goes, well, I should have never saved Emily from the colonies. And Janine goes, well, thank you so much for saving me. And there's like a nice moment between Aunt Lydia and Janine, and you could see how much Aunt Lydia does care for Janine. And Janine is so kind to Aunt Lydia, even though she doesn't really warrant that kindness. With the new season, and because June has been restationed at the Lawrence household, she gets a new walking partner, because remember, handmaids can't go out, you know, and go shopping and stuff alone. They have to be in pairs. So we're introduced to a girl named Matthew, who is this woman who's extremely pious and pretty, just not very nice. She's like very pro-Gilead. But I mean, we do kind of learn like her reasonings. Like, she just really is trying not to make any trouble, but in doing so, she is making trouble within the handmaid. She's just not very well liked. So June is kind of on edge around of Matthew. At the reception for the baptism, we see Janine approach the Putnams and kind of beg to be reinstated as their handmaid, and Aunt Lydia kind of freaks out. She beats Janine, hits her with this stick, and then June has to intervene and, you know, put her body in between them. And, you know, Lydia, I think, snaps out of it. She sees everyone just kind of horrified looking at her, and so she retreats, and we see her kind of break down in private, because like she literally just beat the only girl in her care that actually cared about her, you know, so it's just kind of sad. At this reception, Serena and Fred kind of reunite, and they are given a video that shows that the baby has been safely like reunited with Luke and Moira. And June hears, and she's so happy to hear like the baby's safe, Luke and Moira are there, and everyone's like happy. But unfortunately, Fred and Serena approach June and basically ask her to make a phone call to Luke and try to convince him to let them visit Nicole. And so June is forced to make this phone call. It's a very sad phone call, because Luke is like telling her like how much he loves her, and she's like, I'm sorry, I don't have enough time. You have to let them see the baby, like please do this. And so Luke does agree for them to come visit Canada to visit the baby, but it can only be Serena, her alone. He doesn't want Fred anywhere near him. Serena goes to Canada to visit Nicole. She does see Mark again, you know, the American agent, who's kind of trying to convince her to give up Gilead, you know, retreat to Canada to be safe, and she declines. He does give her a phone though and says, call me if you ever want to get out. And so when she meets with Luke and meets with the baby, she does give Luke a cassette tape that June has recorded, where she kind of tells Luke like, hey, so Nicole was born out of love. Like, I love this guy, Nick, he's the father, and I didn't know that if you were alive or not, and this is what happened. And I understand, like, if you don't want to wait around for me, go live your life. And so this is a hard thing for Luke. So when Serena gets back from Canada, her love for wanting to have a baby, I don't know, her selfishness overtakes her, and she's like, I'm gonna get Nicole back. Obviously, she really wants to be a mother, and even though she made the right decision initially to get Nicole into Canada away from Gilead, her selfishness is she just wants to bring her back to Gilead to have her. And so she kind of tricks June into being in this weird televised plea where she has to stand behind the Waterfords while they beg Canada to bring their baby back. Now June is obviously extremely upset with Serena because she went back on her word. She had made a right decision, she went back on it. So June, Rita, and the Waterfords go to DC where they meet with this higher up commander, Commander Winslow and his family. June sees they have a huge family and everything seems okay, but then she meets their handmaid. Has had her mouth permanently shut. She learns that the handmaids in DC, they're permanently silent. So they are not nice there at all. She's also kind of forced into making another televised appearance to beg for her baby back. It's kind of terrible. Then they meet with these Swiss diplomats that are working as kind of the mediator between the two countries, and they ask to speak with June alone. So June speaks with them and says what can I do to where you could just keep my baby in Canada safe and not bring her here? And the diplomats tell her that they just need information. And she's like, well, I know someone who can give you information. She suggests Nick. So she goes to Nick and is like, hey, I need you to give them information. This is the one thing you could do for your daughter, please. And so Nick at first is kind of I don't want to do that. But he agrees to it to help Nicole. But it ends up they don't really want to use him because he's a commander now. He's kind of too involved. I don't know. So it's a whole thing. But June is forced to do this giant prayer with all the handmaids in front of this huge televised thing. It's pretty terrible. So when June gets back, she talks to the Martha of the family that has Hannah, and she's kind of asking that Martha hey, I really want to get Hannah out of here. I want to save her. The Martha kind of tells her, hey, it's not safe for you to go back to their house because you kind of spooked them a bit, but hey, you could probably go to her school. So the Marthas kind of agreed to help her find her daughter at the school. June talks to Eleanor, who, is going through it, and Eleanor agrees to go with June, kind of for protection, So they go to the school, but they are denied entry, and this honestly breaks Eleanor's heart, because Eleanor is very sensitive, and so when they get home, Lawrence is kind of angry that, she took Eleanor along on this little mission. Later on, we find out that Of Matthew has been spying on June, and she basically ratted out that Martha to the eyes, and so we see later on, June and all the handmaids are at this noose. They're having to hang the Martha, they'll have to pull on the rope to hang her and several others. And then Of Matthew tells June that she was the reason that Martha died, and so June attacks her. The other handmaids pull her off, and all of them just start bullying Of Matthew because obviously she's a snitch, she's not nice, and she doesn't really have any remorse. And so we see a compilation of the ways that these handmaids have been kind of bullying Of Matthew. And Of Matthew, her mental state starts declining. That's a lot to handle. She feels completely isolated from all the other girls, and Lydia starts to notice, and she kind of tries to intervene, but it doesn't really work. Janine approaches June, and she's like, hey, this is not nice, this is wrong. But June is like, whatever, she deserves it. She caused someone to die. She deserves this. Later on in the episode, we see that Of Matthew is at the grocery store. Everyone's there. She's kind of losing it. And then she ends up hitting Janine in the face with a can. And then she steals a gun. She ends up killing a guard. And she points the gun at June. And June kind of smiles at her and kind of looks at Lydia. And then she points it at Lydia. And before she can pull the trigger, she gets shot. And she gets put into a coma. We do find out that Of Matthew is pregnant. So in a situation that's very similar to what's kind of happening in our country right now, this woman is put in a coma. She's declared brain dead, but they are keeping her alive because they're trying to get the baby out. In the same episode, we have seen a backstory of Aunt Lydia. We finally get to see kind of who she was before Gilead. She was a school teacher, and we see she has this relationship with this young boy who has a single mother, and she loves her son, but she's just maybe not the most reliable person. And so we do see Aunt Lydia trying to care for him, and we also see that she has a crush on one of her colleagues, and we see them go on a date, and things are going well, and they're making out, but then she kind of pushes it too far. He kind of rejects her, and she is very embarrassed, and instead of being okay, well, that was rejection, she in turn calls like CPS on the mom and gets her son taken away. And we see that she's being confronted at the school by the mother. She's screaming at her, and Aunt Lydia is completely like unremorseful. She's like, oh, I forgive you for screaming. And so obviously the colleague that was making out with her is like, I don't want to be around this woman. And so we just see like how Lydia has become the person she is. So we see that June is being punished at this hospital where Matthew is being held. June is being forced to like kneel in front of her bed for like 30 days straight or something, while Matthew is being kept alive for the baby. And June is just pissed. She just doesn't want to be there. It hurts to kneel like that. She at some point tries to like in the night, but Janine stops her, and Janine is also there because she had like an infection in her eye socket because she got hit by that can. And they have a conversation, and June's heart is kind of softened, and we do see that of Matthew, like things are not going well with her body, so they do have to deliver the baby via C-section. And so June is offered to like go ahead and leave because now the baby's safe. But she stays with Matthew in her final moments, and in the final moments of Matthew, she promises her, I am going to save as many children out of Gilead as I possibly can. That's a promise. So Serena and Fred are kind of growing closer together. Serena's whole motivation right now is just to get Nicole back. Fred, obviously wants to get Nicole back, but he's also is kind of just intent on growing, with the commanders. They've been working with Commander Winslow, who is kind of using Nicole as a way to get like a better relationship with Canada. Obviously everyone has different motivations. We do see that Fred and Winslow are talking, and basically they're talking about Commander Lawrence and how he should be made an example of, because people are very suspicious of him because he's had like 4 handmaids, no children. So basically they arrive at his house when it's supposed to be like ceremony night, and they say, we're going to watch to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And there's this terrible moment where June has to meet with Eleanor and Commander Lawrence, and she's telling them like, we have to do this or else we will be killed. We have to. And it's just terrible because none of them want to do this. And so it's humiliating. They have to do the ceremony together, and even June has to be inspected afterwards just to make sure everything was successful. This greatly traumatizes Eleanor. It's just terrible. She basically tells Lawrence of her plans to help the children get out of Gilead. Commander Lawrence says that he's on board to help her, but she has to get Eleanor out, and she agrees. And so we do see like they're talking about different plans, and they're talking about like maybe like taking the kids out on these trucks, but then Commander Lawrence says like there's some new regulations with like transport, and like that probably isn't going to be a thing. And June suggests like, how about a plane? Like, could we take them out on planes? So June goes to Jezebel's to talk to a bartender who's supposed to arrange like a flight to get these children out of Gilead. But unfortunately, Commander Winslow is there, and he takes June into a room and he tries to essay her in a terrible scene. June is able to like kill him. She's sitting there like in this dress, just sitting there with his body, and a Martha shows up, and it turns out this Martha was one of the 5 women that June chose to be a Martha and save from the colony. So this woman is like, I'm gonna help you, don't worry about it. So we see this like scene of all these Marthas helping June. They're like taking care of the body, so June is able to get out of there without being noticed, and so that's a great thing. So June arrives back at the Lawrence household, and she sees like Eleanor is pointing a gun at Commander Lawrence because like she's just so overwhelmed with the guilt, and she sees like her husband has been involved in all these things. June talks her down, and she's like, it's gonna be okay, we're going to get through this, things are gonna get better. And Eleanor's like, how can you say that? How can you know that for sure? And June's like, it has to, And so she's able to talk Eleanor down from that. And, Eleanor is on board with the plan, but, she's just dealing with a lot of mental health issues. So things are just difficult. So because Serena is pretty upset with Fred about being too distracted and like helping get Nicole back, she tells Fred like, I think we need to call Mark. He gave me the satellite phone. Let's call him. He can help us get our baby back. She convinces Fred to like go on and meet Mark, so that Mark meets him out, and he goes like, here, drive with me to a different location where we can talk freely. Fred follows Mark in this car, and he doesn't realize that he's driven onto like Canadian property. So the minute he gets out of his car, he is arrested, and we find out that Serena has completely given Fred up. She's completely ratted on him and given him up just so she can get her baby back, which is like completely angers Fred. Nicole is taken from Luke and Moira and given to Serena, which is terrible, but then we find out that Fred has ratted out Serena about her crimes as well, and so then Serena is taken into custody as well, and Nicole is returned back to Luke and Moira. At the Lawrence household, we see that Mrs. Putnam and Mrs. Winslow has arrived, and they're like worried about Commander Winslow. They think he's been kidnapped. Eleanor is so unstable that she starts kind of ranting and she almost gives away the plan to help get all the children out of Gilead. Thankfully, she doesn't give away the plan and they leave. And she starts kind of like telling June, like, okay, there's a kid down the street. Let's go get him. We can do this, do that. And June screams at her and is like, you have to stop. You are going to give us away. We can't just be doing this unsafely. And poor Eleanor, she has such a good heart, but she's just, she's just so traumatized. And she goes, okay, I understand, I'm sorry. And she goes up to her room. Later on, June goes to check on her, and it turns out that Eleanor has overdosed. She has taken all of her pills and she is gone. And June, out of fear, doesn't initially go tell Commander Lawrence what has happened. She goes downstairs and waits for them to find her because she just knows like he's going to associate her with the death. So they bury Eleanor and her and Lawrence have like this conversation. Commander Lawrence is on board to help her. He's just so heartbroken that Eleanor is gone. And has talked to all the Marthas and handmaids, and she's getting bread baskets from Marthas to confirm that they're in on the plan. So all these Marthas start helping. The day of like the operation, kids are being delivered to the Lawrence household, and some Marthas are getting a little nervous. Like one Martha escapes and runs away, and June almost shoots her. But another Martha's like, just let her go. But Gilead is on high alert because all the kids are missing. So of course, things are not safe. Janine lets June know, like, hey, they're searching everyone's houses for these missing kids. So June, the Marthas, Rita, Janine, all these people take all the kids through the woods to try to get to the airport to get them out of Gilead. They arrive at the airport and there's like a guard by the gate. And so in order to get these kids safely on the plane that's waiting for them, the handmaids start like throwing rocks and stuff at the guard to distract him, while Rita helps get all the children on the plane, and they successfully take off and they get to escape. And the guard runs away. June chases the guard and kills the guard, but then she also is injured in the process. So we see June just lying there bleeding. And in the morning, she's found by the handmaids and they take her to safety. And that's how the season ends. June is just being carried to safety. Her goal has been achieved. She has saved a bunch of kids from Gilead. Obviously, she hasn't saved Hannah yet. That's still a mission. She has to find her daughter and save her. But she has done so much for these kids. And we see the kids arrive in Canada and they're reunited with their families because they were separated. So it's really great. Like June and all the handmaids and all the Marthas, they did such a great job helping those kids. So that was season 3. I enjoyed season 3. It is a hard watch in some places. Like the Eleanor storyline, I feel so bad for Eleanor. Like how awful would that be to, be trapped in Gilead? Because like June talks to her about like, y'all can get out, y'all can escape Gilead. And she's like, my husband is a war criminal. There's no way he can get out of here. And so Eleanor feels completely trapped in Gilead. I wish she was able to escape too, but just terrible. But I liked how we got like a backstory on Aunt Lydia. The Serena storyline, like she's almost slightly redeemed at the beginning of the season because she did make that decision to help Nicole, but her selfishness always wins out. She's just that person. So like I have a very hard time believing Serena will ever truly be redeemable, but there you go. But yeah, I don't know. What did y'all think of season 3?